My acrylic pouring is a joke. I am not an acrylic artist. Never have, never will, never found joy in any acrylic paintings. And at some point, I was being told, especially in my earlier years, that my watercolor style does somehow look acrylic like sometimes. So I gave it a go and got all the supplies. And this is basically how did we get here. 17 years later, I'm left with this box of semi-useful acrylics of different varieties, some very old, very dried up, none of which I will ever paint with ever again. And since I hate the idea of wasting supplies, I found out acrylic pouring, you can use any and all of your acrylic paints in it, and oh, these are so beautiful. I fell in love immediately. I thought this is the good way to go, and I started to try and gear up. Oh, I love this so much. First thing I've got was this liquid pouring medium, some of these small neon colors, ready for pouring paint that I wanted to try out what's the difference. Eventually the inevitable silicone oil and the all famous Floetrol. Some ice sticks for mixing, the kitchen torch I already had, and some old pantyhose for filtering. An old canvas with a hole that I decided not to throw away but just fix it with some MacGyver tape. I started the mixing and I started pouring on everything for a couple of weeks looking for the perfect consistency in a paint. In the first one, the consistency was fine, but then for some unknown reason, the paint started to form this thick layer at the bottom. I didn't know why. In the next one, the paint layer was too thick and it started to crack when it dried, and I didn't know why either. The third one I liked to an extent. I used Open Cup for the first time and I liked the effect at the top, but not the blob at the bottom. Which brings us to this absolute disaster of an acrylic pour. It looked good before it dried, as did this one, and this is how I found out that my balcony isn't level. So my absolute favorite painting was completely destroyed by drying, and I also smudged it. For this one I used a different board which was cardboard based, and it started to bend when it was drying. It's fine because I hated it anyway. This one was probably my first success. I really liked it, and it was also very smooth surface after it dried. No cracks, no thick layers of paint. It was perfection. As was this one, although the colors overmixed. I didn't use anything brown, but you can see that there is plenty of brown. It's just paint overmixing. These two were done at the same time. Both were dual open cup pours, and I like some of the cell development, especially in this first one. The second had some good moments, but I didn't strain the old paint, so it's got these areas that I liked very much, but then it also got some of these pimples at the bottom that just ruined the entire structure. And it would have been so much better if I strained the paint. As it was in this one, I used a variety of pinks and whites and forest green. They overmixed, but look at all of these pimples. This one doesn't have any because I strained the paint, but some of the cells got really good. I think the middle, I got some good development, but they got completely obliterated with the tilting. And I think I'm doing this too aggressively, I think. As was the case in this one, where all of my paint consistencies were different and they started to behave differently towards each other, both in tilting and of course later on in the drying. So this one didn't turn out quite as good as I thought it would. Which is where I figured I'm gonna do the first swipe, and swiped I like very much. I had good cell development across the board. It's not exactly how I wanted it to be, but I am very happy that I got this far. And of course there are sections with thicker paint, but there is no cracks. I'm happy with that as well. That's different. But overall, I am not happy with my results and I need your help. Leave comments, please. What is it that I'm doing wrong? Because I can't seem to get any of this right. I'm going to pack up my stuff and leave it for now until I am ready to try this again. So please help, please. Pretty please. Sounds like desperation.